Chapter 238 Sharing Life and Death Together. At this point, the three Wolf Apes' martial soul fusion skill was completed. The dark purplish radiance changed into a three-part beam of light that shot into the sky. Hua Yuao's body was completely engulfed. Instantly, Hua Yuao felt as if the horrifying pressure that was suppressing his body was about to tear him apart. At this point, he finally understood. If Wang Qi hadn't rushed here in time, he would still be suppressed even if he activated his sovereign's descent to its fullest and had the Snow Lady's help. These three Wolf Apes were much stronger than he had expected. Their martial soul fusion skill was scary beyond his imagination. The golden dragon armor started to let out piercing, grinding sounds. It was extremely awful, but it sounded like Wang Qi was struggling unyieldingly to him. The dark purplish world seemed to have been there for all eternity. The Wolf Apes revealed vicious looks in their eyes. They had used this skill to kill many soul beasts and soul masters in the past. Even though their cultivations were only at 10,000 years, this three-way martial soul fusion skill was their strongest weapon. Along with their instant teleportation, they formed a team that couldn't be overcome. The dark purplish color faded from the Wolf Apes' bodies. Just like Hua Yuao had expected, their bodies entered a temporary state of weakness as they ended this martial soul fusion skill. They still had to be wary of Wang Qi, and thus they were prepared to escape once they finished their martial soul fusion skill. However, Wang Qi had used some method to get herself involved in their soul skill earlier. Soul beasts were soul beasts. After all, no matter how cunning they were, their intelligence wasn't as high as humans. They believed that their soul skill would be able to kill Hua Yuao and Wang Qi, and they would have their corpses to feast on after that. While there wasn't much to go around, the taste of human corpses was still better than that of soul beasts. This was especially true if the corpse's soul power hadn't completely dissipated. Just as the three Wolf Apes were relaxing, one of them stiffened up suddenly and lowered its head. It was looking at its chest. 5 sharp blades were stabbed inside it, exuding a dark golden light. Following this, a sonorous dragon roar reverberated. The Wolf Ape's body was blown apart, and there was a huge hole in its chest. It screamed pathetically, not expecting such a sudden change just as it was expecting to feast on human corpses. The other two Wolf Apes realized that things were going wrong. However, a bright golden figure had already appeared in front of them just as the ground shook with a deep rumbling sound. In the middle of the dragon's roar, 2 bright purple gold lights shot out. They struck the Wolf Apes' heads at the same time, and the 2 Wolf Apes stood frozen in place. Yes, it was Hua Yuao and Wang Qi who burst out just before the three-way martial soul fusion skill was about to end. They exhibited their own martial soul fusion skill, the Dragon Roar of Destiny. Using Wang Qi's golden dragon armor, they managed to resist the strength of the three-way martial soul fusion skill. At this point, the golden dragon armor was already covered with rusty stains, and there were even cracks in many parts of it. Golden fluid seeped out from these cracks. Hua Yuao didn't just use his own abilities at this point. He also possessed the great strength of the golden dragon. His soul power had increased until it was equivalent to rank 70. This frightening strength greatly enhanced his speed. 2. As he pointed his pose toward the ground, he moved and arrived in front of a Wolf Ape who had been struck by his spiritual shock. These 3 Wolf Apes had defeated many opponents before now, but they finally slipped up today. They were in a weakened state, and thus were controlled before they could recover. It was destined to be a tragedy for them. Hua Yuao's right hand reached out for the Wolf Ape and grabbed its chest hair before flinging it away towards the next Wolf Ape. While these 3 Wolf Apes were soul beasts, they had grown up together since they were born. With their highly compatible three-way martial soul fusion skill, it was easy to tell how close they were to one another. Seeing that its brother was flung towards it, it subconsciously lifted its claws to grab hold of him. However, it saw the look in its brother's eyes that warned him to escape. But it was too late. The conclusion was already decided as a frightening boom sounded. As the 2 Wolf Apes collided, a deafening and earth-shaking explosion erupted. The snowless glacier had long since killed the second Wolf Ape, while the ultimate chill enabled it to be converted into the sacrificial offering of Hua Yuao's ice explosion technique. Hua Yuao unleashed both the snowless glacier and ice explosion technique amidst the Dragon Roar of Destiny, which led to such a shocking situation. It proved that Hua Yuao's abilities would stun the entire continent when he reached a 7-ring cultivation. All of his soul skills would be enhanced as his cultivation increased. After completing this last strike, Hua Yuao's legs turned to jelly, and he couldn't help but fall to his knees. He was exhausted. Although the golden dragon armor helped him resist much of the attack from the three-way martial soul fusion skill, his soul power was also depleted in the process. The last few bursts had completely exhausted his soul and spiritual power. Even the ability to judge if the Dragon Roar of Destiny wasn't activated before the 3 Wolf Apes were killed. Golden light dripped from Hua Yuao's body like fluid and slowly took form, reforming into Wang Qi. All this while, Hua Yuao had always seen a tough Wang Qi. However, her appearance had changed at this moment. Her clothes were torn, and her face was pale. Fresh blood also flowed out from her nose, and her eyes looked very dull. Her body turned soft, and she fell into Hua Yuao's arms. Qi. Hua Yuao called and quickly grabbed hold of her. At this moment, he was no longer as furious as he was before. Hua Yuao believed that Wang Qi would have been capable of killing the 3 Wolf Apes if he suffered from the three-way martial soul fusion skill alone. However, he would have most likely perished. At that point, Wang Qi didn't choose her own safety but rushed to the core position of their martial soul fusion skill. Using the Dragon Roar of Destiny, she resisted the attack by turning into armor. She must have absorbed almost 70% of the attacks made by the Wolf Apes attack. Hua Yuao was touched by her actions. She had saved his life. He finally addressed her less formally at this point. Wang Qi struggled to open her eyes and muttered, "You saved me once. I'm returning that favor. I don't owe you anymore. You don't owe me anything. You don't owe me anything. Don't talk. Rest." As they were able to unleash their martial soul fusion skill together, Hua Yuao could sense that Wang Qi's life power was depleting quickly at this point. Her body was also exuding a weird, dim golden glow. There was a wound on her body that was bleeding heavily. If this continued, she would die from blood loss. He had to adapt, and couldn't watch as she died. He took in a deep breath and said softly, "Qi, I might violate you. However, your injuries are too serious, and I need to treat you now. Otherwise, your life will be in danger. Forgive me." After he finished speaking, he bit the tip of his tongue. The intense, prickling pain jolted him awake. He placed Wang Qi on the ground. As she exclaimed softly, he tore her clothes around her waist, where the largest wound was. Wang Qi's body was already stained red with blood. Her blood was a little weird. There was a little dim gold mixed with the fresh red blood. Seeing that the wound was almost an inch deep and 4 inches long, Hua Yuao sealed her blood vessels before retrieving the emergency kit that the academy prepared for all of its students. He took out a needle and started to stitch up her wound. Wang Qi was indeed very tough. It was even slightly difficult to prick the needle into her skin. This resistance meant it was easy to make mistakes. If he were an ordinary doctor, this might have been very challenging. Fortunately, Hua Yuao was a soul engineer. With the help of his spiritual detection, he poured his soul power into the needle before pouring some of the strength of his ultimate ice into her wound. This reduced her blood loss and the pain that she felt. As he stitched her wounds up, Hua Yuao also slightly activated the domain of perpetual ice. He used its ultimate chill to delay Wang Qi's blood loss. He was stitching up her wound very quickly, and soon it was closed completely. After the wound was dealt with, Hua Yuao quickly shifted to the other side. This time, it was Wang Qi's right thigh. When Hua Yuao was ready to tear her clothing, he stopped slightly. He lifted his head to look at her. At this point, her eyes were already completely closed. It seemed as if she had completely handed herself over to be treated by Hua Yuao. Hua Yuao grit his teeth and tore her clothing apart forcefully. A shocking wound was revealed on her thigh. Her white thighs were smooth, long, and very gentle to the touch. Hua Yuao's heart quivered slightly, and he lifted his left arm before biting down onto it. The prickling pain enabled him to focus again. He stitched her up again. Using his spiritual detection as a guide, he kept dealing with the most serious wounds as he treated Wang Qi. Wang Qi's torn and tattered clothing was slowly turned into cloth fragments. Less and less of her body remained covered. Her figure was perfect. When Hua Yuao finished treating her last wound, he was dazed as he looked at her. Right now, she was almost completely naked. She was only covered in certain private areas. Her turquoise hair was messily swept to one side, and her pale-looking face made her look weak. Something's not right. Hu Yuao's days only lasted for an instant. He immediately realized something was amiss. For a single young lady like her, she should be feeling shy that her body was almost completely exposed to a guy that she barely knew. She shouldn't be immobile as she laid on the ground. Hu Yuao rushed to press Wang Qiu's pulse and slowly poured his soul power into her. He soon discovered the problem. Wang Qiu had lost too much blood, and her life force was still dropping. She seemed to be very reliant on her blood. Even though her wounds had been stitched up and the blood loss had been stopped, her life force was still failing. Her condition even seemed to have been aggravated. At this point, the sky had turned completely dark. The sky above the forest seemed to have been suppressed. Large patches of gloomy clouds drifted over, bolts of lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. It seemed like it was about to rain. In the end, Hu Yuao wasn't a professional doctor. He had done his best to stitch up whatever wounds there were, but he was now at a loss as to how to deal with Wang Qiu's injuries. He couldn't treat her blood loss with his soul power. Blood? Life force? Suddenly, he thought of something. He focused slightly before retrieving a set of his clothing from his storage-type cell tool. After that, he quickly removed the cloth fragments and cleaned her body with a towel and clean water. After that, he dressed her up with his own clothing. Wang Qiu's figure was extremely slender. His clothes seemed a little loose, but they still fit on her body. After completing all this, Hu Yuao discovered that he was perspiring profusely. He didn't know if it was because of his fatigue or because of Wang Qiu's tempting figure. He carried her to a spot at a higher elevation. He retrieved his portable tent before placing her inside. Only her head was left outside of the tent. He sat cross-legged in front of the tent and helped her head onto his thighs. As he took in a deep breath, Hu Yuao retrieved his white tiger dagger. As he looked at Wang Qiu's pale-looking face, he cut his left wrist. Blood shone. Hu Yuao used his right hand to open Wang Qiu's mouth and placed his left wrist over it. His blood started to drip into her mouth. Hu Yuao's life power was too strong. 10 seconds after he opened this wound, it started to heal by itself. Yes, there was only one method he could think of that could save Wang Qiu. He wanted to use his blood, which contained the immense life power of the life gold, to restore her life power and blood formation abilities. As his blood clotted, Hu Yuao immediately cut his wrist again to release more. He continued to drip blood into her mouth. Just like that, he fed her his blood and continued to cut his wrist every time the blood flow stopped. His surging life power slowly circulated through her body. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.